What up, y'all? This is Violent J from Insane Clown Posse, and right now you're listening to In Your Head Radio. Know something about it, bitch!
All right, and we're back once again, and making his third appearance on the show is one of my favorites of all time, as I've said many times. We've got the hardcore legend. We've got Mick Foley with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, but I understand you say that about every single wrestler who comes on the show.
I really don't, but...
all right, I'll do some background. I'll do some checking. I bet you do.
I honestly don't. My favorite growing up was Piper, and then when I got a little older, it was always you.
All right. I'll believe you. I'll take it at your word.
You better. You're a good man. All right, we'll let everybody know. I don't know what I'd do if you didn't believe me. This Friday night it's a midnight Central Time, which what is that? 11 Eastern?
Yeah, I'd say so.
No, it would be
1 a.m.
1 o'clock. 1 a.m. Eastern. Yeah.
I'm a terrible host, but it's gonna be good stuff. Psychopathiclive.com, and it's only $15. And this card is just like insane.
It's unbelievable. For people who are skeptical of what the ICP would put on as far as wrestling, it literally has to be seen to be believed. Am I right? Like it's granted, some of the guys achieved their fame a few years ago, but as far as cards go, man, it's got some of the biggest names ever. So it's going to be an interesting event.
Mm-hmm. Like I said with Shane, like if you just read off the names, you think someone was just making it up. Like this isn't a real card.
Like there's no way you could get all those people there, because you get one of those guys on a typical independent show, and that's your name for the show. And am I exaggerating when I say there's like 50 of those? I mean, it's like it's like an all-star card. Like Shane is one of my best friends, and you guys said you talked to him. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Shane's on that card. Like there's just so many guys representing so many different eras and so many different places, from Shane and Raven and some of the ECW guys to the Midnight Express to Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll from the old NWA days to your great rematches like with Valentine and Santana from old WWF days. It's I swear I'm not really hard selling something I'm not excited about. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be really cool, and I think it's going to be a cool thing for me to call my first commentary since doing it for WWE 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Do you think like Violent J is going to be on your ear yelling at you during that?
I think I insisted on it. I'm like, man, I don't know if I can work unless somebody's yelling at me. So I think both of them, Shaggy's going to take turns. They've got a headset where they can both yell at me simultaneously.
Just like, what kind of tone will like the commentary be? Because I know some of the, like Stranglemania, which is just an awesome. Tape.
Those guys are really funny on that. It will not be satirical.
Right.
Hopefully it'll be funny in places, but the idea is to treat it with with respect. That's the way that Kevin and I are intending to do it, unless he just has a real surprise on hand for me. Like, but I intend to do a respectful and hopefully a good job on it.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that you wouldn't. I wasn't sure. How that.
Well, I asked him the same thing. I was like, how are you planning on calling these things? And I sent out a little tweet, in response to somebody, kind of questioning the gathering card, and I was like, hey, say what you want about ICP, but they have lined up a great wrestling show. Mm-hmm. I mean, the matches have to deliver, I mean, that's a given that they have to come through. But on paper, these are some of the greatest rematches in history.
Mm-hmm. You say that about ICP, and I've noticed just over like the last year or so, like people that I know like really look down on ICP and any show that they would do, that people are starting to come around to. We're at the Fan Fest, and usually that's not like the crowd that really loves ICP, but a lot of people are talking about the iPay-per-view and the show that's coming up Friday.
Yeah, I've been plugging this thing, now that I've learned how to use technology a little bit. I always put in like the full thing, juggalogathering.com, so that people can then just, I found if you don't have it there and it's not highlighted, people will not take the time to type it in. But if it's just available at a click of a button, I feel like people will look at it and be like, just amazed at the diversity of the, of the lineup, not just in the wrestling show, but the singing, other forms of entertaining, and I'm even doing like the latest late night comedy act ever. It's at 3 a.m. Eastern, which would be Central, 4 a.m. Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, how did you get involved in doing the stand up? Like, when did you start doing that? Why did you start doing it?
Yeah, people are shocked. They're like, you never made me laugh in your life, I always thought it's kind of a natural thing,
Yeah.
We're kind of storytellers in the ring, and then of course, if you got a microphone, part of the challenge is to keep people interested, and sometimes you do that with humor. And I thought that people enjoyed the humor in the books, and so on a couple of occasions. I try to mix it up every night so that no set is the same. But I told the story about Jake Roberts for the first time. It was in my book in '99, but just because I wrote it in '99 doesn't mean it's not still relevant these days. And it got a great response. So on the plane ride over here, I was like, over to where I am now, Long Island, I spent about 2 hours thinking of how I could make that story better. So it's different than wrestling promos in the sense that once you do a wrestling promo, it's done. You don't do it again. You might use certain themes again, but that particular promo is done. Whereas in comedy, you take something, you put it out there like in its most basic form, and then you kind of whittle away and chisel away, I think is what I guess you could whittle, right? You could whittle or chisel away at it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you get it down to its best best format. And this will be a challenge because I have no idea what to expect out of the crowd at 3 a.m. with all these lunatics running around. But hopefully it will inspire me to tell some good stories.
Mm-hmm. Now, we just saw Piper do his stand-up last Saturday. And it was just hilarious. I don't know if you've ever.
So he did stand up at the wrestling convention.
Yeah, it was pretty late then too, not 4 a.m., but it was like midnight.
Was there anyone else on there with him?
No, it was just him. It was his son came up for just a little bit, but yeah, it was just him, and he was it kind of reminded me. Did you ever see LeJohn Leguizamo one man shows? Kind of.
Yeah, I did actually.
It kind of reminded me of that, where he tells stories about his life, and maybe he wouldn't play different parts, but I kind of thought maybe you could record a bunch of them and do that, or maybe you could do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because people will say, I remember when I did a show in L.A. and somebody reviewed it and said he didn't even tell jokes, he told stories. Like, come on, comedy is such a wide. It's a huge palette. Like you can. There's not a one size fits all for comedy, which is why a guy like Yakov Smirnoff still has a theater in Branson, Missouri, without ever actually saying anything funny. He's got his own theater. Right. He had one joke. Out of country, but some people really found that funny. Just like Larry the Cable Guy is not everybody's taste, but apparently, given the fact the guy sells out arenas. It is a lot of people's taste. So I kind of do my own thing. I would love to see Piper do it because he's coming at it. Sounds like a similar way where it's stories. You kind of integrate stories from wrestling with stories from life, and hopefully just some bits that you think of when you're driving down the road. So I'd love to see Roddy. I'd love to do a show with Roddy sometime.
That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, I saw him at Days of the Dead horror convention in Indianapolis, and I was in front of a different audience because they weren't all wrestling fans, and it got over really big there too. And it's almost all wrestling stories.
Yeah. You know what? First of all, wrestling fans are universal. It's so funny when it comes to these conventions because you can put a wrestler in any convention format, let's consider the Gathering to be a huge convention just for the sake of argument. And wrestling obviously works in that situation. You can put a wrestler in a sci-fi show. You can put a wrestler at a monster truck rally. You can put a wrestler at a baseball card convention. Like, we'll fit in anywhere. But you try to take someone else from a sci-fi show and put him at the monster truck rally,
Right.
he's not getting out of there, in one piece.
Uh-huh.
So we kind of fit in everywhere. And even if, even if a story is not about wrestling, it's something learned from a life in wrestling. And I think it's things that people can identify with. It's just, it's kind of like, at least the way I see it, it's like observational humor, not claiming that I'm nearly as good at it as Jerry Seinfeld was, but it's observational humor just taken from a much more extreme point of observation.
Right.
I'd go on record saying I've seen more stuff than he has. If you've been wrestling for 25 years, you've seen more stuff than just about anybody.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of talk about penis during Piper's performance.
About a pianist, like a piano player?
No, about penises.
Alfred Hayes.
Right, yeah.
You know what? I said that. I'll give you an example. I'll talk a little penis too here for a second.
That's right.
My 19-year-old's in the room. I did a show, and I just figured, what the heck? I'll come out and I'll mention that maybe, tweeting. Sending out a tweet comparing my empty arena match with The Rock to a typical TNA house show was not the best move in the world, and I was like, geez, even Congressman Anthony Weiner sent me a tweet saying, "What, are you be crazy? You don't tweet that stuff, like, that's just stupid." And then he sent me another tweet. Yeah, you know who Anthony Weiner is, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, Wienergate. And then, so that was really helpful. Then he sent me a second tweet. It was of his penis. And he sent me a third tweet, and it was of my penis in his hand. And I have no idea how it got there.
It was good times. I actually had that in my little notes here about the empty arena Twitter comment. Do you think Twitter does any good, or does it get all the wrestlers in trouble?
You know what? You shouldn't tweet when drunk, angry, or emotional. When I sent that out, I'd been traveling all day. I'd driven 400 miles home, and I wasn't happy with the company. I thought they made my day a little more difficult than it needed to be. And then I saw the Rock had responded for the first time about me, and so I just sent out that little tweet. It was probably the most it was, if not for Anthony Weiner, it would have been the most costly personal tweet of the month. I had offered to for TNA to relieve me of my job, but at that time we were kind of trying to make it work, and then following that it was like, okay, you can go ahead and leave. I think that was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm.
Well, I won't be tweeting anything at 4 a.m. After the gathering.
Yeah. Looking back at your TNA run, to me, I thought your highlight was your thing with Flair, but it just, I don't know why it wasn't on a pay-per-view, but the promos were like awesome. What would you say like your highlight was?
Yeah, that was exactly it. I was glad actually it wasn't on the pay-per-view. I mean, I was asked how I'd feel about doing it on TV, and I said I'd be thrilled. I mean, not to put the company down, but just the people are not in the habit of ordering their pay-per-views, so we got to do it. In an audience just conservatively 10 times bigger, probably a lot more than that would have seen it. I mean, you guys can do the figures. A couple million saw it as opposed to tens of thousands. And if I have one regret, it's that they didn't build that match up to be a bigger deal on TV.
Maybe that's why I should have said it.
Yeah, they had a video package already that they didn't run because they were going long, and it's one of the frustrating things was knowing that there was a lot of filler on that show and just saying, why didn't someone make the call to put the package in there, make that match as big a deal as it could be, and just forget some of that stuff that you can see on any other week on TV. But yeah, the promo and match like back to back were probably my favorite part of that of that run there in TNA.
Yeah, I know you weren't part of it, but just I think it was a few weeks or months before that was the woo off with Flair and Lethal was. I just thought that was
Oh,
probably
it
the
was
greatest thing
hilarious.
ever.
I think it was several. I think it was several months before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I remember we were in India with me, Kurt, and Jay, and Jay was just hilarious. There were some times, I like to think that Kurt and I are pretty good on these, TV shows, but there were some times where we just stood back and we're like, Jay is just stealing the show here. He was so funny, and we told him if he could ever find a way to channel like that same, Macho Man and Ric Flair stuff into his own character, that he would be, one of the most entertaining characters ever.
Yeah, instead of just like a straight up, impersonation, if you take a little bit of this guy and make your whole new character, right?
Yeah, that's what, so many guys have done that. You look at, I would always say about Bubba Ray Dudley that he was just a cheap, blatant, second-rate Mick Foley knockoff. But as far as cheap, second-rate Mick Foley knockoffs went, he was pretty good. And then he would say, so there's a lineage of me stealing Terry Funk's gimmick, and then Brother Ray stealing mine. So there's nothing wrong with borrowing, but you're right, doing the flat-out imitation is kind of limiting. But yeah, that was some great stuff. The woo-off was tremendous.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Ray, though, he's got himself in awesome shape, and he's probably one of the best guys on TV right now. Yeah,
man, he's really come out of that box. He was, I think eventually they're going to be thought of as one of the great, tag teams of all time. But I think everybody thought that's not when I say all they would be. I mean, I don't think anybody saw a breakout single star there, and he just he's great. He's done a great job, like you said, really gotten in shape, which shows you how seriously he's taking it. And I haven't watched the show in about a month, but up until then, he was a highlight of every episode.
Now we go over some of these matches that are going to be on the big show here, because they really are just amazing. You got NWO versus DX. You got Hall and Ash versus Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. I don't think anyone's, I think everyone's been wanting to see that for years.
Yeah. I don't know if that's ever been done before.
I don't think it has. And the main event, I mean, just I Quit match, Terry Funk and Roddy Piper.
Yeah. And Funk, for people who haven't seen him on a show, I know he's up there in years, but he allows the audience to suspend disbelief, maybe not even disbelief. I know when I refereed a match with him, he just, he went crazy, and SoCal Val was in the ring, and I said, I'm not sure if he's, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So, you might want to get out of here for your own safety. And I don't think he knows what's going to happen. And I'm sure, at 3 a.m. he's going to want to steal the show, which is great.
Who else on there? We got so many people. Memphis Madness. That one's got Coco Beware, Kamala, Jerry the King Lawler, and Dirty Dutch Mantel.
Yeah, I mean, this is a style of wrestling that's loved by the people who grew up on it, and that's quite a bit of the audience, especially Cave and Rock is actually a lot closer to Nashville than it is Chicago, and so a lot of people there will be familiar. Plus, a lot of people come from all around the country, and those are legendary names in that part of the world.
And of course, a steel cage match. This is like the opening match. Tito Santana and Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah, and they had I think it's a rematch of a great cage match they had. I'm going to say like 84. I could be wrong on that, but I remember seeing it. The belt changed hands. Honestly, I can't remember who won, but I remember those guys had great. They had a great rivalry and great matches, and I granted, they're older, but I know they're not going to go out there thinking that they're going to embarrass themselves. I think they're going to want to give people as good a show as they possibly can.
Now, Intra and I, for years on the show, we've had a big, long debate over the big blue cage versus the mesh cage, and I'm a mesh man, and Intra here he's a fan of the big blue cage. So.
The blue cage was good for climbing. It allowed you to do some stuff that the mesh cage didn't. You did not want to be thrown into that that blue cage just hurt. It hurt all over. You know,
See,
I mean,
Jack?
I remember China like slamming that cage on me. It hit me so hard in the head that I grabbed my shoulder, like 'cause the that shock went all the way down to my nerve in my arm. And so it was unforgiving, you know, in a way that the mesh was not. But I agree with you. I grew up on the mesh, and I like this. I like the mesh, but I do think that matches that were not just relying on brutality, like Owen and Bret Hart, and one of the manias inside the blue bars was about as good as it gets for a cage match.
Yeah. We often, I don't know if you've tried or not, but are you a fan of Faygo?
Just say yes.
The beverage?
Yeah.
Say you love it.
The Red Pop. I haven't had one in years. I don't know if that would make me a fan.
Yeah.
But why will it be out there in abundance?
Yeah, that's the big drink among the juggalos. Is the Faygo.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like that's why it's good that it's at the gathering and not inside a hall. Like I'm sure that the custodial staff loves to see the ICP come into town with the Faygo Red Pop.
Yeah, just be spraying down everybody.
Yeah.
Can we just take a couple quick calls? You mind?
Sure.
All right, Fontana.
Yeah.
You got a question?
Mick Foley, how's it going?
How are you doing, man?
Big fan. I had a question. I know you came into the USWA right after World Class, or maybe.
Well, I was actually there when it changed. I remember them pulling the WCCW letters down, so I was there when it made the transition.
And me and my buddy at work today were just talking about that. We heard you were going to be on, and he was like, "Yeah, I remember seeing that." And I was just wondering, what was probably one of the biggest moments of that time for you with the USWA?
Man, I really loved my time in the USWA. I mean, that whole time was, well, except for breaking my wrist in the scaffold match and then wearing the cast for 4 months was. If I divide it like to six great months, and then after that it kind of went downhill with the broken wrist. But I really enjoyed wrestling Kerry Von Erich. I only wrestled Kevin a few times, but had some really good matches with Kerry rather. And I'd say I probably enjoyed a couple of my singles matches with Eric Embry as much as I did anything for the first several years. So a lot of great memories there.
It was just awesome to hear you speak here, and hopefully we'll see you in the Hall of Fame this year, Mick.
Hey, if not this year, there's always other years, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this year. All right.
Yeah,
you're a shoo-in for sure, man. So
hey, thanks a lot.
Time.
It's too bad that you're not the guy doing the voting, though. I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in. Gene.
Hello.
Gene, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
I'm hanging in there. Thank you.
Awesome. I just want to know, basically, I mean, you have a long history in the business, and you see how it's changed from, when you got in the past and to the present day. What are some of the pros and some of the cons that you can see from the business today as opposed to it was when you were, in your heyday in its prime?
I'd say that the biggest con is that there are not nearly as many places for guys to learn. Even I was kind of one of the guys in the tail end of the territories. I'd say, if you take, Jericho, me, and Austin, and there's probably a few others, but we're kind of like the last of the guys who wrestled in the territories. And so when we did get a chance to, get the big break, we were kind of seasoned and had our own styles. I don't begrudge the current guys who get in a little quicker. Like I actually could never have made it that route because I had to make all my mistakes on a smaller stage. And I had to come in, kind of polished, or else I never would have made it just based on my, my looks. And physical skills. So the guys who come in, they're like making their mistakes on that huge stage. And I just think that, it's difficult to really be seen in your best light when you don't have the experience, the years of experience in front of a crowd. So I think you're getting better athletes, but you may not be getting better, seasoned wrestlers.
Okay.
Is that a pretty good answer?
That's a great answer. One more thing before I go. You've seen a lot of guys who were big stars once upon a time, and now, in the end of their careers, things haven't turned out so great for them in their professional life and their personal life. Perfect example, Ric Flair, and the issues that he's been going through personally and financially. Here was a guy who was one of the greatest ever. I mean, ever to step foot in his business, and now to see him now having, a lot of financial issues and some personal issues. So, what are your thoughts on guys who don't transition too well from the limelight?
Well, Rick's still in the limelight. He just, I think there was a line, I'm going to get the line wrong, but something he said in one of his own videos, that there was no price too high for, character authorization. That's not the term he used, but essentially it meant that, any expenditure was acceptable when it came to getting the character over. So it worked in the sense that he really came across like a limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun. But unfortunately, there's a huge price that goes into riding limos and flying private planes. So I would say, like, if you're breaking into the business, you might want to think about being the guy in the flannel shirt who sits, in 26C by the crapper. Like, it's an easier gimmick to pull off financially, And,
does it have to be by the crapper?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be, but you need to pay those type of dues. So I would say, even the guys, who get the break in WWE, they might want to go to Vince and say, Vince, I'd like to sit by the crapper for a couple of years just so I feel like I paid my dues, I'll tell you, one of the worst moves I ever made coming back from my own promotional tour of England. I did like 3 cities in England. It went really well, but I paid for it myself. I wanted to put that investment into the tour. And to try to, push the book. Because I believe, hey, you do your very best, and you ultimately can't control whether people buy the book or buy tickets or whatever it is. But I thought I was like getting a pretty good upgrade into an exit row. Mm-hmm. For like an extra $150, it'd be worth it to have the leg room. But it was on a 747, and the exit row was right by the toilet. Like, there was only one area for the toilets, and it was right by where I was sitting. So it was a constant line and just the constant sprinkling of poo dust in the air. It reminded me when I was in Canada. Right now my hair is all salty because I was out doing some stuff with some underprivileged kids out on the beach today, and we had to take a boat ride back, and man, that salt was it's just spraying all over us. And the last time my hair felt this way when I was in Kandahar in Afghanistan, and they had these big fires, going on, these horrible, fires, smelling fires, and it turned out that the soot in our hair was actually the burning of feces.
Oh God!
Petals in a cloud. And it was like, God, that the water temperature was about 42 degrees Fahrenheit, but it was like the most inviting place in the world. You just didn't want to, I mean, when people say you smell like bleep, usually they don't mean it in the literal sense, but we really did smell that way.
That doesn't sound too pleasant.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gene. I don't forget what you asked, but I don't know how we.
Yeah, I have no idea what the question up there. The guys living the gimmick and all that.
So and one more question. I promise this is the last one.
Wait, how many questions does this guy get here?
Yeah.
No, that last question was a good one. So let me have a third.
Is hardcore wrestling really dead? Because you don't see it anymore, and I was a big mark for hardcore wrestling and a lot of stuff that you did with the tables, trash cans, the chairs, and everything in between.
Yeah, I don't think it is, because there's always elements of it around, and even when the WWE teases it, like in this, Last Man Standing type of thing, or Falls Count Anywhere. Like that hardcore, I think, is etched in people's minds. To this day, when they advertise a Hell in a Cell, they're part of the lure, I believe, is the past, glories or misfortunes of that match. So I think it's really handy to have it to just kind of bring it out once in a great while instead of all the time, like we did for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for calling in, Gene.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gene.
Just so you know, they hear us a little bit of delay, about 2 minutes, and the chat room's all abuzz over a poo dust. So that's
they
really
like
over.
the poo dust.
Yeah.
Credit Samantha Bee from The Daily Show, because I was reading her book while I was about the poo dust while I was being covered in poo dust. So it's actually the particles. Yeah, scientifically there is. You can look it up. It's one of the elements. Magnesium, chromium, and poo dust.
Well, Van, one of the fans there, he gave you a new term you could use. It's farticles.
Farticles. Okay, but I'm not talking about the passing of gas. I'm talking about
this is solids.
Actual feces. Yeah.
I was going to take one last call because he's calling in from Scotland, so I hate to leave this man on hold too long. Get Brains.
Thanks. I was just going to say Undertaker is probably your most famous opponent, and next year is rumoured to be his last ever WrestleMania, his 20th. Who do you think would make a good opponent for him, and would you like to be that person?
Well, hey, it would seem like one of them. I mean, there's like about 5 natural matches he could have, and I guess mine is one of them. Even my 8-year-old, he trapped me when I came home. He just said, "Dad, are you going to break the streak?" So, he's not going to retire at 19-0. You got to go for that 20th.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would physically be able, up for a main event of that stature. But it'd be nice to be considered and asked, and then it'd be a pretty cool problem to have, to wonder whether you could get in that kind of shape. But personally, I don't think it'll be. I don't think if they come to me, it won't be because I was their first choice. I really believe they got a couple other things lined up ahead of me.
Go on, Brain. Sorry.
Could I just ask for him to have a shout out for my nephew called Dara, please, who's an absolutely huge fan of him.
What is it, Donacles?
Dara.
Okay, how about I just say, "Hey there, buddy," because I know I'm going to butcher that name. Hey, pal, that's what we do in wrestling if we can't remember somebody's name or we only know their gimmick name that they used previously. Hey there, pal.
That's good enough.
To this day, I'd say most real big fans know more about guys' real names than I do. I know I've heard AJ Styles' real name and Christopher Daniels' real name, but I just couldn't tell you if you had a gun to my head.
And we do.
All right, we got one more question, and then I've got to run.
Answer, you got a question?
Yeah, let's see. I had a question from the message board here. Nikhil, he wants to know, are you happy that good old JR is back on commentary?
Yeah, I mean, JR's awesome. He belongs there. He's an institution, and I think that was one of the best moves they could have made, bringing JR back. Because I do enjoy Michael Cole. I really do, and I think the stuff he did as a coal miner was tremendous. And I think when he went out there giving interviews about how he was going to enter the Hall of Fame as both a wrestler and an announcer, the fact that he looked like he believed it was incredible. But nobody rises to the occasion on a big match like JR. Like, some of his calls are just classic. They're as good as anything anyone's done in any sporting venue. And it's just it's great to have him back in there.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Mick. It's been great.
Hey, I said 15. We went 37, right?
Yeah. Well, we said 15 with Shane. I think we went 40. So
our clocks are a little.
All right. Was Shane more intense than I was?
Oh, I think they're both equal.
Yeah.
I think you're a more laid back guy, but I think.
Generally, given that we were, inseparable, in DiNucci school, you probably couldn't ask for 2 more different personalities.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
All right. But, hey, hopefully thanks for talking to me about this thing. I think it's going to be a cool event, and I hope people will venture over to the comedy tent after the big wrestling show, and I'll try to make it worth their while.
Cool. And, honestly, once you get it all down pat, I would think about recording just a big long one and putting it on DVD.
Well, we're going to record my show. We're doing one on the 24th in Long Island. We're going to have it professionally recorded, not so much for the DVD or for sales, but to give people an idea of what I do. Mm-hmm. Because that's the hardest thing. That's been the biggest challenge, is to get people who know and like me to come out to see me do something different. I was in Plattsburgh, New York, doing a personal appearance. We had about 300 people at the appearance. And when I asked them about coming to the comedy show later that night, they got visibly uncomfortable. They didn't want to tell me they didn't want to go, but they didn't want to go. They would have rather stood in a line for 2 hours than watch me do comedy for 2 hours. That night, people are actually paying for the meet and greet and then leaving, even though they already paid for the show. So we're going to hopefully do some stuff and get the word out, and then I'm going to put some stuff out there so when people want to know, they have somewhere to go for it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, and all the links and everything for the show this weekend are right on the website. There's a big commercial for it. You can watch a video, and so get all your information right now on the website you're listening to. That's inyourheadonline.com.
All right, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Okay, bye.
This is the most missed wrestler in recent history, and I happen to be the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. You're listening to me right now on InYourHeadOnline.com, because you know where the action's at.